Hello, and welcome to the PRSS 109 MCO Portal training session. During this session, we'll show you how to navigate the MCO portal. Then we'll show you how to access MCO functions, maintain MCO profile data, and manage delegate access. The agenda will be the MCO Portal Overview, manage MCO participation applications from providers, portal profile maintenance, and delegate access to the MCO portal. Our learning objectives will be to understand the purpose of the MCO portal, understand basic navigation of that MCO portal, and manage MCO participation applications from providers. First, we're going to look at the MCO portal overview. The MCO portal allows MCOs to view and act upon provider applications to participate in the MCO. When a provider enrolls using the provider portal, they have the option to request to participate in MCOs. If the provider application to participate in Medicaid is approved, provider management or PM pushes the MCO application to the MCO portal. The MCO clerks review the application and determine next steps. They can request more information, decline a provider, or set up a contract. If the MCO awards a contract to the provider, that information is sent back to PRSS, where the provider management area and provider portal are updated with the contract information. Let's see what the MCO portal looks like. You will always start at the Secure MES login page. We won't be able to demo the secure login page because the training environment is not connected to MES, but we do want to show you what it will look like when the system goes live and you go in to do this. So you start at the MES login page. You're going to enter your credentials, your username, and your password, and then you're going to click Sign In. These credentials will be created for each MCO and provided by PRSS. After you log in, you will be taken to the MES landing page. On the bottom left, you're going to notice a provider management tile that populates. Then there's a little arrow icon that if you click on that arrow icon, it will expand the provider management tile, and then you will see this PRSS portal link. So you click on the PRSS link, and when you click on the link, it will take you to the MCO portal. So let's log into the training environment so you can see what it's going to look like. So you click the link and it takes you to this page. At the top right, you're going to notice a login. So we're going to click on that login, and then we're going to add in our username and password. So today we're going to log in with our CCC Plus login MCO. And we're going to add a password here. Let me grab that. Notice there's a little eyeball icon. If I'm not sure that I've typed in the right password, I can click on this eyeball and it will then show the password that I've entered. Next, we're going to click the Submit button. All right, so this is going to take you to our CCC Plus Aetna of Better Health page. From this screen, the MCO and ASO can access the applications list and access profile maintenance. If they have delegates, they can manage those delegates here too. So you notice we have an applications list in the navigation bar. We have My Account with a drop down, and that's where you can see your Manage Delegates option. For more information about delegate users, you can attend the PRSS 118 Introduction to Provider and MCO Delegate Management Training course. So the first thing we want to talk about on this page to introduce you to is the at a glance bar. So at the top of this thin narrow bar, this is the at a glance bar. It's located at the top of every page, and the at a glance bar provides a list of all available functions from the current window. So first we're going to point out the Messages tab. This displays broadcast messages related to system outages. system upgrades, and new features and important information messages. Broadcast messages display when you log in. So if you have a broadcast message, this window will already be opened. So when you log in, you will see this window, and the messages are organized by the highest priority, then sorted by effective date, with the most recent date first, and then alphabetically by message text. Any messages that need to be acknowledged are considered highest priority and thus display at the top of the current messages. So when you log in, you would have this current messages window up. Your important message would be here. You would have a little box at the top right that would say read, and you would have to select the checkbox that says read to acknowledge that you've read it, and then it would move those messages over to the acknowledged tab. So when I first logged into this account, it said, welcome to PRSS training. It had a little checkbox that said red. When I clicked that checkbox, that's when it moved it over to acknowledged. And I can't go any further here until I read those important broadcast messages. Okay, so I'm going to select the X to X out of here. After messages, you notice that there is a Contact Us tab. This displays contact information for the MCO to contact support via email, phone, and mail. Next to the Contact Us, you see the FAQ tab. The Frequently Asked Questions tab displays questions and answers related to commonly asked questions about information within the MCO portal. Next to FAQ, you notice Portal Help. The Portal Help tab, if I click on that, you now can view help topics about the MCO portal functionality and the kind of information available. So the MCO ASO help appears in this new window when you click it. Notice you have tabs at the top that you can select from. You also have these functions, these expandable topics on the left side, and you can click those options to get more information, more help topics. All right, so we're going to exit out of here. Okay, so before we get into the profile maintenance section of this session, let's show you a function that is specific to delegate users in the MCO portal. So delegates are those individuals assigned to view and update information on the provider's behalf in the provider portal and on the MCO's behalf in the MCO ASO portal. So let's switch back to log in the training environment. So we want to log in as a delegate for an MCO. So we have Elena M. Davis. So we're going to log in here. We grab the password here. And then again, we're going to submit. For delegates with multiple organizations, the Switch Organization window appears rather than the MCO Portal Secure homepage. This delegate is not a delegate for multiple organizations, so it starts right here at the MCO Portal Secure homepage. The Switch Organization feature allows a delegate to switch between organizations without logging out of the portal. So before a delegate can begin working, they would need to select the organization. So if I go up here to the right where it says Switch Organization, I'm going to click on that link. And so if I had more than one organization that I was a delegate for when I logged in, this is what I would see with a list of my organizations that I was working for. So I would simply click that organization. It highlights that organization record. And then I would come down here to the bottom right and I would click Submit. This is how I would select my organization if I had more than one. All right, so now up here, you notice that it says I am a delegate for CCC Plus Aetna of Better Health. If I had more than one organization and I was done working for this MCO, I would go back over here to the Switch Organization link, and then I would just simply select the next organization that I wanted to work for. So again, we would select the MCO. We would click Submit down here at the bottom right. And it opens to the secure homepage for the selected organization. Notice that we have delegate for displays this organization that we're the delegate for, which is CCC Plus Aetna Better Health of Virginia. Next to that, we have the MCE ID, which is the Managed Care Entity ID. And this tells the user which organization, this whole bar tells the user which organization that they're working for. So that's something that you need to pay special attention to. To access a different organization, again, we would just go over here to switch organization, click on that, and then we would select another organization. And then we would click submit. So we're going to just briefly go back to our slides, our PowerPoint slides. And the next thing we're going to talk about is portal profile maintenance. All MCOs, ASOs, and delegates can view and update their contact information in the portal profile maintenance section. So let's go back into that delegate account and see what this is going to look like to update contact information. So we go up to our navigation bar where it says My Account. We again look at this drop down and we go into the portal profile maintenance selection from that drop down. This is going to take us to the My Account profile window with pre-populated contact information. We'll give the system just a minute. Notice we are now in the My Account profile window. Most of the fields are going to be the same for MCOs, ASOs, and delegates. These fields are going to be all the same, except remember we're in as a delegate, and a delegate will have this relation code or the relationship code field. That's the most important difference, is this relationship code field that is present in registered delegates profiles only. When a new MCO wants to add a delegate as a user on their behalf, the delegate would need to provide them with this code to link their portal account. I also want you to notice that if we go scroll down on this page, at the bottom right, we have an edit button. If we select that edit, then it allows us to edit the editable fields on this page. Next, we're going to talk about how to manage MCO participation applications. So we will go through the application list, revalidation, and audit. Providers can submit applications two ways. They can submit applications during the enrollment or revalidation process in the PE Wizard and during maintenance in the provider portal. The MCO applications are not displayed in the MCO portal until after the provider is approved or revalidated with the Virginia Medicaid program. So let's look at the application types. So we have a new enrollment, which is a newly enrolled provider requests a contract with an MCO during enrollment. We have re-enrollment, where the provider who was previously enrolled re-enrolls and selects an MCO at the time of re-enrollment. We have a new MCO where an existing provider requests a contract with a new MCO through the provider portal. Then we also have revalidation existing and revalidation new. Revalidation existing is when the provider is revalidating and has an existing MCO contract at the time of revalidation and requests enrollment with that same MCO. Revalidation new is when a provider is revalidating and has selected an MCO to participate with that the provider does not have an existing MCO contract with. So next we are going to log back in as an MCO. So we'll go back to our training environment. Again, we have, of course, logged out for security purposes. We now want to go up to our login and log back in as our MCO. So we have our CCC Plus Aetna. And I'm going to grab my password again, plug that in. Oops, there we go. And then click the submit button. So next we're going to talk about the applications list. So from the navigation bar, you see this applications list. So we're going to select that applications list. The sortable applications list populates. The application list displays applications submitted by providers who want to participate in the MCO. The list is defaulted to show all applications in pending status only. So notice over here where it says MCO status, all of these applications are in pending status. and that's the default. Notice we also can switch pages. We may have more than one page of applications. Couple of things that I want to point out to you on this page, or on this, on this page in the table, are that we have filters. So we have our column headers that indicate different things, service location ID. I can, if I get in the right place, I can move that column out so I can see the complete number for that service location ID. We have NPI. Again, we can move this out to show the complete NPI number. I have provider type, provider specialties, published date, MCO status, reason code, MCO status date, and enroll information. Also, if I go to my record, so my provider record who has submitted an application, I notice that I have a little arrow or a caret that I can click on, and then that will expand and show me additional information for this provider. So for an MCO clerk to review an application and make a determination for participation, they first have to download the application. So the first step to working an MCO participation request application is downloading the enrollment application. So if I want to work with this application, again, when I select it, it's going to highlight, turn it a different color. I go to the enrollment info, and I'm going to click on that PDF zip file. The enrollment zip file contains a PDF of the provider's Virginia Medicaid enrollment application and the submitted attachments. So we've now downloaded, we've select download, and we download the applications in pending status. We click that zip icon for the specific record under the enroll info column. And now we're going to get this alert confirmation that says the MCO status has been updated. You might need to update the sort filter to see the updated record. So notice that I no longer see my record on my table because I have downloaded the zip file. So we're going to select OK. I'm going to show you down here at the bottom left of my screen, I have that enrollment zip file. When I click on it, it's going to open. Let me grab this window and bring it over. So this is the zip file I opened. It has the enrollment PDF along with all of the other attachments. So we're going to select that enrollment PDF just so you can see what it looks like. And this is that PDF. So this has all of the information that you need here. And again, we're going to go ahead and close this PDF. You then have all of the attachments that you may need to also review. So we're going to click the exit here. So the MCO status date is updated with the date on which the status changes, and the application is downloaded as a PDF onto your computer. So now to view which applications have been downloaded for review, we're going to go to this MCO status column. So I want you to notice that we have filters on many of these columns. If I select service location, the filter, it's going to allow me to put in a number here equal to, so I can filter by a number. If I were to select the name filter, again, right here, if I were to select provider type, the filter right here, it would, let's see, there we go. The provider type, I would have all of these different options to choose from. So what we want to do is we know that our MCO status has gone from pending to retrieved. So we're going to select the MCO status filter. We can select all to filter by, but remember the less you select, the more narrow your filter would be. So we're going to go down and we're going to say we want to see our records or our providers that have been retrieved. So we can then select the filter. I also want you to notice at the bottom left of the table, you have export all. So these export all tabs allow you to download all applications in the application list. So downloaded applications that are still pending appear in the grid with an MCO status of retrieved. So here we have here's our MCO status. Here are our applications that are in retrieved status. And the MCO status date, the one that we retrieved today, is right here. So the MCO status date of today. So this is the application that we just downloaded that PDF of. And then it has gone from pending to retrieved, and the MCO status date was changed to today's date. Once the application has been awarded a contract or rejected, that contract status will update in provider management for PRSS enrollment and management clerks, and in the provider portal for providers and their delegates to view the MCO participation status. So again, once the application has been awarded a contract or rejected, the contract status here will be updated, but also in provider management for PRSS enrollment and management clerks, and in provider portal for the providers and their delegates to view the MCO participation status. If the MCO ASO clerk determines additional documents are required from the provider, they can make this request from the MCO portal. So how do we make a request for additional documents? So we would choose our provider application. If necessary, we would adjust the MCO status, but we are already where we need to be. So we would adjust that MCO filter status to include a specific status or all statuses. We are looking for a provider that's in the retrieve status. So we are already there. At the end of the row here, you're going to notice that there is an edit button. So our provider that we just looked at today, we looked at the application, we've decided that we need additional information. We're going to select edit. And now you notice that the MCO status and the MCO reason code fields are available for us to edit. So we are going to select the MCO status of attachments required. And we're going to then need to also select a reason code, so further information. When we go again to the end of this row, we see that we have an update button. We select update at the end of that row. Documents required from provider window appears. We are going to enter the required document details in the attachment detail field. So we're just going to say additional documents. You all know what you need to put in there. So then and everybody's different. So I'm just going to select, I'm going to put in additional documents, and then I'm going to click submit here. We now get another alert confirmation. These are important. You want to make sure that you're reading to make sure you're selecting what you intend to select. The MCO status has been updated. These also have good additional information. So since the status has been updated, you might need to update the sort filter to see the updated records. So we're going to select OK to accept that. Notice our record is gone because we were in retrieved. And now we will need to look at that. We'll go to the MCO status up here, the filter up here, and we are going to say we want to see the applications that are in attachments required status. So again, I'm going to go down. Notice I still have retrieved checked, so I'm going to uncheck retrieved because I only want to see those that are in attachments required status. So I'm going to click filter. And here we go. So here is our application that we have asked for additional information. A message is sent to the provider portal alerting the provider to the document request. So on the other end, the provider will get a message that says what additional information we need. The MCO status changes to attachments added once the provider uploads the documents. So right now it says attachments are required. The provider gets an alert, the provider attaches the documents, and then it will come back to us and the status will change to attachments added once the provider uploads the documents. So we're going to go to MCO status filter again. We are going to look and see if we have anything under attachments added, and we're going to click the filter icon. So this is a provider who received that information that said we need more information. They've sent back the documents, the attachments that need to be added. I'm going to select this caret for additional information, and notice that we have additional information. When this caret is here, or this arrow, It expands to tell you if there's additional information. Again, here is that additional information. So those attachments that provider has added that we requested. So a consolidated zip file is available under the additional information for the MCO clerk to review. So we are just going to briefly go back to our slides and then we're going to come back here. So we're going to not log out at this point, but it's only going to be brief. So we want to talk about the verify credentialing statuses. The MCO clerk evaluates the provider MCO participation request application and selects an MCO status based on the MCO criteria. Decisions for provider records are based on the evaluation performed by the MCO clerk. After the MCO clerk decides, users can update the MCO status of the provider from retrieved to one of the following. So they can change it to credentialing passed, which is the credentialing information provided meets the MCO criteria. Credentialing failed, where the provider record cannot be considered for a contract decision. The credentialing fails to meet the minimum MCO criteria. Or provider declined, where the provider record cannot be considered for a contract decision based on the provider deciding not to participate. So let's go back to our training environment. We're going to go back to see in our filter what contract statuses are available. I'm going to take this out. We can select all. We can select acknowledged, attachments added, attachments required, contract accepted, contract rejected, credentialing failed, credentialing passed, pending, provider declined, retrieved, or canceled. So contract decisions are made on provider records based on the evaluation performed by the MCO clerk. When the provider's credentialing fails or provider is declined, the MCO ignores the respective provider record. If provider declines or credentialing failed was selected, you cannot assign a contract status. And that's why you would not pay attention to those provider records in those credentialing fails or the provider is declined status. After a contract status is assigned, the contract status will update to provider management for PRSS enrollment and management clerks and in provider portal for providers and their delegates to view the MCO participation status. The two MCO status options available for PRSS enrollment clerks and management clerks and providers that they will see are contract accepted, where the provider records are accurate and is approved for the MCO ASO program within a specific network, or contract rejected, where there is reservation about accepting the contract and the provider on that provider record, and the provider contract is not created with that respective MCO or ASO. So how do we accept a contract? So we would click the edit for the selected provider record. So we're going to go back to our pending records. So we click pending. Again, we are at our MCO status. Click filter. We have these provider applications in pending. So we go to the end of the row. Actually, no, we don't want pending. We want retrieved. So MCO status, we go to the filter. We want those statuses in that are retrieved. We click the filter icon. We have a provider record or a provider application, new enrollment. This record is retrieved. We go to the end of the row. We see the edit icon. We would click edit for the selected provider record. Notice that to update, and this is what we noticed, to update a contract status, the application must be in retrieved, credentialing passed, or attachments added status, not pending. So again, we had to go to our retrieved status or credentialing passed or attachments added in order to update the contract status. So we go to, again, we clicked the edit icon. We go to the MCO status column. Again, this is open to us. We can now move it from retrieved to accepted. contract accepted. When we select contract accepted, again, we have to select the reason code, so the contract approved after negotiations. We go to the end of this row, and now we select our update button. We get an alert confirmation that says an update to the status will consider the application complete and the record can no longer be modified. Do you want to continue? Again, you want to pay attention to the alert confirmations because once a contract status is selected, the record can no longer be modified. If a provider would need to resubmit the request, if we would have selected rejected in error, that provider would need to resubmit the request. So we're going to select yes here. And the maintain service location capacity and restriction window appears. And we will enter or select the provider's contract start and contract end dates for this network. So down here, we can either use the calendar, we can either type in the date, or we can use the calendar little button here, and we can select a date here. So we're going to select today's date. And the contract end date, we're just going to type in 12/31/99999. This is the contract end date unless there's a reason to set the provider up with the temporary participation. Then we're going to go down to the bottom right, click the Save button. A confirmation message will appear. Up here it says contract information was successfully saved, and then we can close to exit and return to the MCO applications list. How to reject a contract. We would again click edit. So we are going to quickly go back, filter icon. We want to see pending records in pending status. Click filter. We're going to work this new record real quickly. Again, we're going to go over here, click on that zip file. Notice we have the new enrollment zip file has downloaded. The MCO status has been updated. You might need to update the sort filter to see the updated record. We're going to click OK. I know this enrollment has successfully gone from pending to retrieved, so I'm going to go to the status filter, unselect pending. We want to see retrieved, and then we select retrieved, and then we go down to filter, click that filter button. All right, so here is our new application that we want to reject. So this contract is not what it needs to be. We go to the end of the row, click that edit button, and notice we have our MCO status available to us. We're going to say contract rejected. Again, we have to now select a reason code. Contract rejected due to findings. We go to the end of this row and we're going to select update. When we select update, notice a confirmation message appears again. It says an update to the status will consider the application complete and the record can no longer be modified. Do you want to continue? We are going to select yes. Remember, this contract that was rejected can no longer be modified. And once a contract status is selected, the record can no longer be modified, and a provider would need to resubmit the request if it was rejected in error. So the clerk is returned now to the MCO applications list, and the MCO status is updated to contract rejected. So notice we don't have anything. Our status that we had filtered by was retrieved. So let's say we're going to say we want to see pending, retrieved, and contract rejected. And then we're going to select the filter button. And this is going to give us all of the records sorted by our criteria, which is this is the contract that we just rejected. And we can no longer do anything with this contract. And here is a contract in pending status because those were the sort filters that we used. 10 days after an application is accepted or rejected, it is removed from the MCO enrollment application list. So they're not going to stay there. After 10 days, if they are in contract accepted or rejected status, they are removed after that 10 days from that MCO enrollment application list. So another great feature, I'm going to go ahead and filter again by my MCO status. Click filter. I don't want to see contract rejected. I just want to see pending and retrieve statuses, and I'm going to click our filter icon. Okay, another great feature of the MCO portal is the application audit. Notice we have an application audit that's grayed out down here. When we select a record, then the audit button is available to us. We're going to select that audit button. And a record from the MCO applications grid, when we select that audit button, the audit window appears and you can view the user's identification ID, who updated the application, and which statuses the applications went through. So we can, again, we see the arrow icon right here. We can select that arrow icon and it expands the audit history results. So we can look at those results. We're going to go up here. We're going to close this audit window. We are going to log out of our MCO account because we are done here. And we're going to switch back to our slides. The last thing we are going to cover is our revalidation. So we want to discuss the two revalidation terms: revalidation new and revalidation existing. When a provider revalidates with the Virginia Medicaid program and chooses to participate with an MCO, an application is generated by the system in the MCO applications list as part of the revalidation process. Revalidation existing is if the provider is revalidating, has an existing MCO contract, and requests enrollment with the same MCO. The application type is revalidation existing. If the provider is revalidating and requests to participate with a new MCO, the new enrollment request with the MCO, the application type is then revalidation new. Something to remember is applications in revalidation new status, so those that are in revalidation new status, are processed the same way as a new enrollment application. So new enrollment applications and revalidation new applications are processed the same way. Now it's time to see how much you can recall. So we have a few questions to go through. Applications in revalidation new status are processed the same way as a new enrollment application. Is this true or false? Applications in a revalidation new status are processed the same way as a new enrollment application would be true. Question 2. Contract status can only be updated when new applications are in pending status. Is this true or false? The answer to this would be false. To update a contract status, the application must be in a retrieved, credentialing passed, or attachments added status. Question 3. After downloading an application zip file, what status displays in the application list? Would it be pending, retrieved, credentialing passed, or downloaded? And the correct answer would be retrieved. Our last question: how can a provider request to participate in an MCO? And you would select all that apply. And the answer to this question would be both. So a provider can request to participate in an MCO during the enrollment or revalidation process in PE Wizard and during maintenance in the provider portal. So our course summary. We went over the purpose of the MCO portal, so hopefully you have a better understanding of that, and understanding basic navigation of the MCO portal and managing MCO participation applications from providers. Congratulations, you have now completed MCO Portal PRSS 109, and we thank you for going through this session with us today.